Welcome to Wartime CEO, hosted by entrepreneur, CEO, investor, veteran, and adventure seeker Jason Tirico. A podcast centered around helping you tackle life's battles. Learn essential skills like leadership and sales to creative solutions to deal with personal life issues. Life hits hard sometimes. Fight back with Wartime CEO. And now, here's your host, Jason Tirico.
Hello and welcome to Wartime CEO. On today's episode, we have a special guest with us. He is a driven entrepreneur who's taken an interesting journey into the real estate industry, and at a young age has become an invaluable resource to those looking for real estate investment, advisory, private capital, and mortgage financing. Please welcome one of our first guests of the show, Isaac Sandoval. Hey, Isaac.
I'm doing great. How are you, dude?
Good, man. Glad to have you on the show. As I shared in your introduction, I mean, you are an invaluable resource. I mean, you're my go-to guy when it comes to, capital investment, finance, especially within the mortgage industry. So definitely happy to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time. I want the audience to gain some of the knowledge that you've taught me. And so, I'd love to, kind of pick your brain and share some of the things or reshare some of the things that you taught me with the audience and helping them to prepare for 2021. Right. So.
Yeah, definitely. I'm super excited to be on. Very excited to share what is hopefully going to be a great year for everybody. In hindsight, I guess anything would be better than 2020 in a lot of cases.
Right.
So definitely looking to, set the right tone for the new year and help as many people as possible.
Certainly. So, we've known each other, I don't know what, maybe 6 years now, something like that.
Right. About there. Yeah.
Around about there. And, what I think is one of the most impressive things to me is that, you are your age, and mm-hmm. At an early age, I mean, you are wiser beyond your years,
thanks, man.
A lot more about the industry than people who have got 10, 15, 20 years in the industry. And I think, one of the things that really gives you credibility is like your thirst for knowledge and hunger for it, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're always learning, you're always trying to figure it out and that kind of thing. So like what got you kind of started in that direction? Like what made you, first of all, become interested into the real estate industry, and then you started Guardian, right? And mm-hmm. and what kind of started you off into that entrepreneurial part of the journey?
Yeah, definitely. So it's kind of a loaded question. I've honestly had a lot of time to reflect on it. Just because I've been asked before and didn't really have a good answer. So I'm happy that you're bringing it up. But essentially, I kind of got my start really early on in life. So my father is a builder and general contractor. And so kind of growing up, I spent a lot of time, riding in the car with him, seeing how he talked to people, taking a look at his own entrepreneurial journey. And that sort of sparked a lot of creativity in me and sort of helped me understand, what it is that I want to accomplish in life. I would sit and kind of ask him questions all day long as we were driving from job site to job site and, kind of picking his brain. And one of the awesome things about my relationship with my dad is that he never let me not ask him a question. He was always receptive and always gave me a concrete answer. And when he didn't know, we'd take the time to kind of figure things out together. And that kind of set me on a path to I guess where we are today. So that's kind of how I got roped into the entrepreneurial journey. And with him being in the real estate industry, that I picked up a lot. At an early age, I decided to go ahead and get my real estate license and started buying and selling real estate, advising clients on, what to buy, whether it was their first home or their first investment property, or, they were moving assets from, one point in their investment phase, and they were,
Sure.
Transitioning to a later point in life and had to move those assets to, the next of kin. So that's kind of how I got involved. Just, I guess I was sort of fell into it like a majority of people do in the industry.
Sure. Yeah. And, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not also, championing you, but I'm a client, right? Like you helped me refinance my home recently, and we've had several discussions, especially in the real estate industry, especially coming up in 2021.
Right.
And I think there's so many people out there that want to prepare for either buying their first home or, finding the right financial solution for an investment property, that kind of thing, or renting out their existing home and moving elsewhere, and I think one of the biggest things in that process and is their credit, right?
Definitely.
And that's like a huge, mystery. It's like Area 51. You've got all these myths. And I think one of the biggest things that you debunked for me was the fact that, paying the credit cards over time. Remember, we had that entire conversation.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, what are some of those things? Like, I would love for you to share some of those things you shared with me, with our audience, so that they know, what's actual, like the truth, and what's like the myth in regards to rebuilding credit, getting better credit scores, that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so what I'll definitely say to kind of start out is there's a lot of good credit repair companies out there, and then there's some really, really bad credit repair companies that honestly aren't doing a good service to anybody in the community. When it comes to real estate financing and you purchasing an actual real asset with a mortgage, the very first step is making sure that your credit is sort of in the best possible shape, right? Because from the moment that you take that application and that loan is written, you're signing, in a lot of cases, a 30-year commitment to pay back that debt. So there's a lot that goes into, a lot of legwork that goes into getting ready to finance something. Sure. And the very first step is obviously to take a look at your credit report, whether that be with a real estate professional, or you can actually pull up a copy of your own report online for free. So there's many ways to kind of go about it, but the very first step is understanding what's actually reporting on your credit. What are the positive things? What are the negative things? And what changes can you make in the immediate, 30, 60, 90 days to start getting on a path to where you'll have a better credit score, better credit limits, and better credit history. Credit as a whole is a very interesting piece because not a whole lot of people understand it. And there's a lot of myths sort of surrounding credit.
What are some of those myths?
Well, a lot of people tend to think that you need to carry a balance on your credit cards in order for your scores to go up. So what I run into a lot is clients that, will carry a balance that they don't need to be carrying on their credit card because their banker, their bank teller told them, hey, it's better off if you keep some money on your credit card and, pay the interest on it. And that way you'll get better credit scores and you'll get, a higher credit limit. And the fact of the matter is that's not true. Right. Credit is based off of what's called a credit utilization. So the amount of credit available versus the amount that you utilize. So essentially, if you have a credit card, we'll say with a $1,000 credit limit, as long as you're using less than 20 or 30% of that limit, so in other words, $200 to $300 a month or less, and paying that off before the next bill cycle hits, and you continue to build that pattern and habit, because that's really what credit is. Credit is a scoring model for your habits.
Right.
And so as long as you continue to have those healthy habits, your credit score is going to definitely boost upwards. And the limits that you're able to have are actually going to continue to grow.
Very interesting. Yeah. So I think, and that's one of the myths that I was told was you have to carry a balance, and pay it off over time. You pay it off sooner, but definitely you want to pay it off. So you'll use your credit card, for like $300, and instead of paying it off, right away, you pay it off, pay off like half now and then half next month. and then that'll repair your credit that way. And I took your advice when you first told me this, several months ago, and I started kind of playing around with some of those outstanding balances, and I mean, it worked. I mean, my credit score shot up, which is pretty amazing to actually see, in practice, which was great.
Definitely.
So, go ahead.
No, I mean, so that I would say that's probably the biggest misconception about credit that's around. I mean, credit can be, in a lot of cases, it's one of the most invaluable tools that we have. Credit is sort of the defining factor in the era that we live in for a lot of people that go to banks, a lot of families that are looking to purchase new homes, a lot of people that are in emergency situations, for example. Like, having access to a line of credit can be a lifesaver. One of the things that is a little scary going into 2021 and even 2020 that majority of people have sort of noticed is that as a society, we really don't carry much in the form of savings anymore.
Right.
One of the biggest trends in mortgage lending and in the real estate world right now is the use of down payment assistance programs, mostly because, not a lot of people have enough money saved up or a financial advisor that can help them structure a budget to save up for a down payment on a home. Sure. And so, having access to or having a high credit score and good credit history can at least help you get better terms if that's the path that you do decide to go down.
Certainly. I did some research recently on what the average credit score in the United States was.
Right.
And it surprisingly came back. 711 was the average credit score for the average American here in the United States. And it was increased, I want to say, from like 695 or 696. Yeah. So it's gone up, which is really great. So when let's talk to like the, individuals that want to just, buy a new home for the first time. I mean, what are some of the tips and advice that you would give them, things that they should be on the lookout for and steer away from, right? So we definitely want to help those folks out there that, they just don't know what they don't know, right. So what are some of those tips that we should share with them?
I think, well, that question can kind of be broken down a number of different ways. So I think the first is, taking a look at things financially. So understanding, how does this new purchase, how is it going to affect my financial life, the financial decisions that I make on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis? And then how does that reflect the life that I want to live or that my family is accustomed to living? So what I mean by that is, if I buy this new home and I take on this new monthly payment of, $2,000, $1,500, $1,000, whatever it is, how is that going to limit, when I go out to eat, when I go on vacation, when I make these larger purchases that I might need in my life? Or if you're somebody who is looking towards buying a new home, but at the same time you're building sort of investments and other you're investing in other financial vehicles, how is this monthly payment going to limit my ability to grow my business, apply for other credits? Am I over leveraged? Is this new debt that I'm jumping into? Is it really going to be beneficial for the long term? So those are sort of the first initial questions that you need to ask yourself when you're planning before you even go talk to anybody. I generally like to tell all of my clients, hey, before we go down this journey, realistically, what are you comfortable paying monthly? And, what are you paying into right now, whether that be subscription services? I mean, everybody has Netflix and all these monthly recurring subscriptions that we kind of take for granted. How big of a change is this new payment going to be? So for somebody that is a first-time home buyer in that case, right, that payment shock can be pretty challenging.
Sure.
For someone that's a little bit more seasoned, it's realistically like, is this new payment really going to make sense? Is this new mortgage going to make sense for the long-term goals that I have? either going into retirement or transitioning from a smaller home to a newer home, et cetera. So that's from a financial side, taking a look at the implication and the impact that buying a new home will have. On the real estate side, it's really, what features do I need in a home? Who's going to help me find this home? Who's going to help me buy the home? How do I know that the person that I'm working with is an honest, trustworthy person? And for that, usually the best way to find a real estate agent or even a mortgage advisor is to talk to friends and family. Friends and family that have already gone through the process, that have someone that they can vouch for, whether that be somebody that was awesome, or, sometimes you'll get the person that says, hey, whatever you do, don't use this one person because it was not a stellar experience. And in a lot of cases, that can kind of guide you in the right direction, right? Like now, hey, this person had a bad experience when it came to XYZ. Now I know not to look for XYZ. Exactly. So real estate as a whole is generally a community-driven, local grassroots effort. And so finding the best of the best in your industry, in your specific market is really the way to go. Focusing on hyper-local people that know the market through and through, whether that be on the financial side or that be on the real estate sales side, right? Like the actual agent side. That is really how you're going to get the best possible deal in your local market.
Okay. So it's very community based, very 100%, local. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Getting involved is the only way to find out on a local level to make sure that you're getting a good deal.
So how about this? Let's pretend I'm the new buyer, right? Mm-hmm. I've never bought a home and I need to find someone like you and someone. What are questions that I should ask these people? As I'm, I go to my aunt, my mother, my cousin, hey, I'm looking to buy property, who have you worked with in the past and do you have a good experience, right? Now, so they're going to come with some level of credibility, but I still want to vet them some. So what are some 100%. Questions, what's some questions that I should ask them and to help vet them for me?
No, I love the approach, and that's generally speaking, the best way you want to do it is to hold an interview, right? Like these people, the real estate agents, the mortgage companies, the title representatives, everybody involved in the transaction. At the end of the day, if you have an agreement with them and they're representing you, have them apply for the job, right? The best way to do it is to take a look at their credentials, take a look at their past performance, take a look at what other people are saying. Not just your circle of trust, right? The people that you hold close, but somebody on the other side of town that you've never talked to. What do they think about this person in their dealings with them? Would they recommend them? Ask for referrals, ask for past clients, past performance. Hold the interview as if they were applying for a job at your new company that you just started, right? Because at the end of the day, they are the ones that are responsible in making sure that the dealings that you do with them and whatever, third party that gets involved in the transaction, that it's all going towards your best benefit.
Certainly.
And that everything is sort of built around making sure that you're protected.
So in the interview process, right, what may be some indicators or red flags of somebody who may not be somebody you'd want to work with?
So I would say red flags are definitely going to be someone who's ill-prepared, someone who is kind of coming by, not putting a whole lot of effort into showing you why they're the best.
Right.
The best people in our market, when it comes to interviewing a real estate agent, they come together with flyers, brochures, video testimonials. They show you, hey, these are the houses that I've sold this year within the past 30, 60, 90 days. These are the clients that I've had within the past 30, 60, 90 days. This is what they're saying about me. They show you the stats.
Right.
It's not somebody that's coming to your house or your apartment or meeting you at a coffee shop and they sort of just woke up 5 minutes ago and they're not ready to answer your questions. They're not eager to help you.
Certainly.
Or it's not somebody that is too busy to the point where you aren't their primary focus.
Absolutely.
So, in a lot of cases, it's great if you have an individual agent, where, you're the focus, right? Like might not be the only one, that they're serving at the time, but they have enough time, dedication, and they have maybe a brokerage of support characters or support members behind them that can help you gain access to properties that you might not be able to find on your own.
Hello, guys. This is your Wartime CEO, Jason Tarico, and want to thank you for listening to this show and bring you a brief message from our sponsor. Our sponsor today is Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast, and it's absolutely free. There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other distribution platforms. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Now back to the show. Certainly. So you mentioned brokerages, and what would be the benefit, of using a brokerage versus going to your bank to do it? What would kind of be the pros and cons?
Sure. So on the real estate side, as an agent, right? There are, I think what you're kind of referring to is the benefits of going with like a nationwide brokerage versus going with like a local independent brokerage.
Right.
So from an agent's perspective, the local agents are really the local brokerages are really the ones that sort of hold the keys to the market, right? Because they know, John and Sue down the street are getting ready to sell, and Jim just walked into the door and he's looking to buy in this area in this market, and he's looking for the exact features for that house that isn't on the market yet, right? Like they're the foot soldiers that are patrolling the streets, know the ins and outs of the city. And they're the ones that are going to get you sort of the hot scoop on what property might not be actively for sale yet, but will be coming up for sale soon.
Okay.
That's not to say that you can't get that at your nationwide brokerages, but you just tend to find more of those hungry, ambitious, hyper-local people at the local brokerages.
Right.
On the mortgage side, you have your traditional banks versus your mortgage companies. In a lot of cases, the mortgage companies are a lot more aggressive than going to, a Wells Fargo, BB&T, SunTrust, et cetera. Right. The reason being that local mortgage company, they only deal with mortgages. They're not going to try to sell you on any additional services, make you open a bank account, this, that, and the other. They are dedicated to writing mortgages in that local market. That's what they do from start to finish. They might have access to additional programs that Wells Fargo, BB&T, and all the other big banks don't offer. And so they're able to give you rates and terms that are just more aggressive.
So
they
want
the
competitive.
Business.
Yeah.
They're 100% more competitive. You're right.
No, absolutely. And I think that's something that I think most people don't realize. I mean, they'll go right to their bank as kind of their front line,
right?
For the loan, for the mortgage, and they don't consider, using a independent, mortgage lender or broker,
right?
To kind of go that way.
The other thing to know, I mean, as a consumer, sure, we're shopping. We shop kind of everywhere, but those hyper local companies are really the driving force behind the market. As a consumer, one of the things that you don't see is that when you present a pre-approval letter is basically like your letter stating that you've been approved to be able to receive financing for the purchase that you're looking to make.
Sure.
When you get that pre-approval letter and it's coming from a big bank that doesn't have a good reputation in dealing with local members of the community, whether that be other agents, the past performance of other agents, they see that letter and they say, oh, I had a horrible time trying to deal with this big bank because they only work 9 to 5 and they don't work on holidays. They don't work on weekends. And when my client is out of work and actually looking to buy the house, they can't get in contact with them.
Mm,
Your local companies are work around you. They don't work around the schedule of the bank.
right.
And so
They don't have the
when
banker's hours, right?
they don't have banker's hours, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so in a lot of cases, as a homeowner, if you're looking to buy this new place, you've got work during the day.
Sure.
And so if you're busy at work and then they're busy at work, but not really because half their clients are shopping when they're off the clock, not a whole lot is getting done.
Right.
um, and so when another agent that is representing the seller, for example, they get that offer letter,
Mhm.
they're looking at your offer, yes, all money is green, but if you never get the money, is it really green? You know what I mean?
Right.
So it doesn't matter what terms the bank offers you if they can never close on it.
Right.
And they can't close on it within the stipulation or the time that's set in the contract. And
Sure.
your local mortgage company understands that. And so they're really a team member. They're a member. They're a part of your team rather than the bank that's sort of this third party player that's not in the same wheelhouse as your local agent. They don't operate within the same sort of structure.
Right. It's not their bread and butter, right? They're just offering it like as an additional line of service and upsell,
Yep.
right, to their banking service.
That's exactly right.
So no, absolutely. So, so as a as an investor or an entrepreneur, right? So you have a lot of folks that want to get into, real estate investing,
right.
Developing multiple properties, or maybe starting out with their first property in the rental process. I mean, what some advice do you have for them in this process?
When it comes to graduating from being a homeowner and becoming a real estate investor, my advice is always continue to keep tabs on your local community. Real estate really is a local contact sport. You have to be involved in order to get the best possible deals. That's not to say that you can't develop, if you're in a high cost living area and you're looking at markets that are a little bit more affordable for you to jump into, it's not to say that you can't, find good investments and invest in good pieces of real estate there. But in order for you to really capitalize and understand that market, you have to be in it day in and day out. And so my advice is still to continue to build that network of sort of like your go-to key players in that network.
Right.
So networking is probably the biggest piece when it comes to real estate investing.
Now we're talking like you're networking. How are you going to like your local, business chamber of commerce events or is there specific things that people that want to be networking is something specific or?
Yeah. So you want to get involved with your local area real estate investor groups, whether that be on like a meetup, like just going to a local real estate meetup, going to your local brokerages and saying, hey, where are all these real estate investors getting together? Even if it's, going to the courthouse on days that they have, auctions, you'll definitely find the type of people that are movers and shakers in your market by going to places like that.
Wow.
So local meetups are huge. Getting connected, whether it be with real estate attorneys, bankruptcy attorneys, all the people that sort of move assets, financial advisors. These are the types of connections that you want to have if you're looking to invest in real estate, because they're sort of the first people to know of, hey, this property is going to come on the market because of X, Y, Z.
Makes sense. Yeah, no, I think that's a key piece that most people don't realize. They start looking at, publicly available properties or things that are on like, Zoom or not Zoom, Zillow and some of these other, public marketplaces for properties. But kind of getting that inside baseball is kind of crucial.
That's the way to do it.
Business, right? I mean, but that's in all things, especially when you're an entrepreneur,
right?
So you started Guardian, right?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of changing the subject slightly, and so tell us, what sparked you to start Guardian? I mean, you've worked in the industry for how long, and what made you get into that?
Yeah, definitely. So the reason for starting Guardian realistically was I wanted to better serve investors from a relationship standpoint and help them mitigate risk while looking at new opportunities. So what I mean by that is I've been on the real estate agent side. I've been on the brokerage side, helping people buy and sell real estate. I've been on the mortgage side, helping them fund those real estate acquisitions or reposition those assets through the form of refinances or restructuring their capital.
Sure.
I wanted to merge the two, and I wanted to do it in a way that we are actually developing partnered relationships with these real estate investors. We look at a lot of different opportunities on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. And a lot of that information is sort of invaluable to somebody that might be getting their feet wet in a new project, or they might just be starting out for the first time. And so in a lot of ways, we help our investors become profitable, not only by the tools that we're able to provide them through our services, but also because they can kind of come to us as a consultant and approach us as a consultant when they're facing a new challenge that they haven't seen before.
Sounds like you're giving them more boutique, full service, or full cycle services.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's right. Rare though. You don't see that. Everyone's trying to, become the next Starbucks or
right.
So kind of providing these high end or what would have been considered high end boutique services,
right?
Is kind of rare nowadays, given that customer service.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the goal for us is how can we better position our investors so that they can continue to use our services? We want to scale and grow with all of our clients. So for that first person that's looking to, buy a rental property and get it rented, get it leased, they need to find the actual property to purchase. They need the money to actually be able to borrow to house the mortgage. We are kind of there for them throughout that process from start to finish, whether that be as the agent, our affiliated property management service, our portfolio management service when they start acquiring more properties, and then being able to finance the whole thing. That's really where we are a powerhouse for our investor partners to help them scale and grow. We're not really, I mean, we'll do the one-off investor that's just kind of, they found one good deal and that's all they want to do. But realistically, we're for the people that are looking to create sort of that mini real estate empire and kind of help them do that along the way.
Certainly. So I would imagine most people are kind of on the latter end of that, where they either have one property or two properties. But they should still come to you, though. You'd still take them on
100%, yeah,
and be able to help them out, which I think is invaluable. So like I started off saying, we've known each other for quite some time, and in that journey, I know you've started different. Different ventures. You and I have even worked on a couple of projects together in the past. How's that entrepreneurial journey been for you? Like, in going from all these different things and trying different things to, the Guardian.loans.
It has been difficult. It has been a fun ride and will continue to be a fun ride, filled with a lot of ups and probably 3 times the amount of downs throughout the cycles that we kind of go through. Right. One of the things that I absolutely enjoy is getting things off the ground and starting new projects. Right. One of the things that I have grown to enjoy is the reflection of when things aren't going the way that you necessarily pictured them to go. Right. And the newfound information that you gain as you kind of traverse that landscape. So I've had the pleasure of getting involved in a lot of different projects, a lot of which I thought were going to go in one direction and ended up going in a different one. But all of that has sort of positioned me to be able to make better decisions faster, with a lot more confidence, and be able to sort of dissect opportunities in a way that I can clearly see when something is going to work out now versus when it's not going to work out. And
that's
so,
good. That's
yeah,
great. I mean, you're learning, right? I mean, this is a learning process, and
that's right.
And even in sales, there's a term, and I use it a lot in life in general. Is when you're talking about sales, you want to lose fast. So
That's right.
disqualify the opportunity, whatever it is. Make sure that it's going to be valid. So the sooner that you can say we're not going to win this deal, or this is not, the sooner you can disqualify yourself from it,
Right.
the sooner you can focus on things that are going to be more valuable when dedicating your time in.
Right, right. I mean, to sort of sum it up, I had a mentor tell me, it's not about how many deals you win. It's about how many deals you lose and learn from that people are actually willing to pay you more money for, right? Like your experience is what drives people's choice.
Right.
Whether that's, somebody that's going to cut your hair, you're not going to go to a barber that just got out of school and has never actually cut someone's hair.
Well, I mean, you might, depending on the haircut, right?
Yeah, but then that's sort of your decision. I mean, live your life how you choose, I guess, on the edge. But you look for people that have gone through the experiences that you're trying to avoid having.
Sure.
And so the faster you can get through that part of life, I think, and help that helps you bleed into other parts of life, to where you can leverage those experiences. So that's really been sort of, in reflecting over the past year, that's really been my biggest takeaway. So,
you mentioned that you've kind of learned to appreciate the reflection of some of these challenges and failures, right, that have happened. What is one that kind of sticks out, that you've recently reflected on?
Oh man, there has probably been the most recent reflection, I would have to say, is a lot more personal than it is business wise, but it's sort of helped me in business as well. And that's sort of taking the time to reflect as a whole. So one of the challenges that I had is I'd run into an issue. I wouldn't know how to handle it. And then I would just sit and not really move. I wouldn't progress forward or backwards. I would just kind of sit in this void for a little bit. And then until I started to make that self-reflection, and then look at the positives rather than just solely focus on the negatives of the situation in order for that to be an improvement, right? So self-reflection as a whole has sort of become a more regimented part of my life, and to where it's something that is mandatory for me to do on a daily basis.
Well, I think we all should do that, right? I mean, it's
100%.
part of, not just from a professional development, but even from a personal growth perspective, making decisions, how could I have done that better? And not to the point where like you're beating yourself up, right? Because I mean, we're all critical of each other, of ourselves most of all, right? But just sitting there reflecting, how could I have done that better? Could I have handled that better? If you're happy with what you did, then great. But, there's always room for improvement, and not just, from like I said, an entrepreneurial perspective and a professional development perspective, but it's crucial within those aspects, right? So if you don't want to develop in your personal life, that's a personal choice. You are who you are. I mean, I know people like that, and they're just happy running around, and they don't feel that they need to grow, and they're very happy in who they are. And maybe who they are is great, and how they talk to people, handle people, that's fine. And some may need some more, they should probably progress a little bit, right? But But if you're an entrepreneur or if you're an employee and you're a professional and you're looking to grow, you always want to take time to reflect on situations. How could I handle that better? How can I think that through? And I think that's so crucial, and it's understated. I don't think people realize that as much in a productive manner, right? Like they do it from a critical perspective to themselves.
Yeah. And another thing that I've sort of had a lot of time to reflect on is professional growth versus personal growth. And one of the things that, 2020 has kind of helped me reflect on is I've made some great strides professionally. But now that I'm sort of detached from society in a way, since we can't have all these meaningful connections face to face, it's been a real eye opener in regards to my personal development, hitting my personal goals that are outside of business, where I spend most of my time.
Certainly.
And so, finding the time to reflect personally on what those goals should be, and how to obtain them. Now that it's, everybody always says new year, new me, right? Like the gyms aren't going to be packed this year. Right. So I don't know how they're going to make it, but usually this is the time, right? You get the people that end up going at like 5 a.m. for a day and then they never come back. So, setting those goals, but setting the expectation that you actually have to achieve those goals and revisiting those goals, daily, weekly, monthly, to where there's no question whether or not you're going to actually commit to them. That's something that I've come to find out I have to do the hard way. Having the discipline, I think, more than anything.
I agree. And I mean, that's kind of the purpose of the show, right? So the whole wartime premise is that, life, whether it's your personal life or your professional growth as an employee in a company, or you're a CEO or you're an entrepreneur starting up, it's a war, right? And you're talking about those goals, right? Your goals, your daily goals, your daily to-do list is kind of like your skirmishes.
Right.
Your weekly, monthly goals is like your battle, and then like your long-term year, goal, that's your war, and then your and like long-term goal, that's your campaign, right? So, fighting these battles, that's what we're here to do. We're here to help people in different aspects of their lives fight those battles. They have questions they need answers to. And that's one of the things we're here to do on this show. So with that said, what is a wartime CEO situation that you felt that you put on your wartime CEO hat, you stepped up and overcame an obstacle recently?
Oh man. So I would have to say that the sort of biggest wartime CEO principle for myself that I've come to learn, is that you can't do everything by yourself. I am of the belief that if I can get it done without having to bother other people or look for other people, I'm going to do it. But in a lot of cases, I've had to learn to take a step back and focus on the things that I'm best at, and then delegate out the things that I'm not great at to somebody who, is amazing at those things.
Right. It's hard.
It's hard.
I'm
it's hard.
I'll just do it myself.
It is so hard because in a lot of cases, I'm like, well, if I just had the time, I could do it myself. Right. And, it would take me forever to do it, but I would get it done the way I want it done.
Right. Well, I think part of that challenge, though, that you mentioned is finding the person or people or service that's going to do it. Maybe not exactly the way you would, right, but at a level that you're satisfied with. Right.
That's right.
And that research behind it. Right. That takes time, and if you're moving fast, you're like, I got time to be. It's quicker for me to just do it myself.
Well, here's the thing about that that I had to learn the hard way is that, doing it yourself, you kind of step away from everything else, right? Like now your sole mission is, how can I do this one, minute task that I had this big ego for that I didn't want to delegate because I thought I could do it better. And now the project is delayed by, months or weeks.
Sure.
When it could have just got done because I could have focused on the things that I'm good at, and could have hired somebody to do the other things that they're good at, and we would have been on to the next one.
Sure.
And so that ego piece, I hate to admit it, unfortunately, but
you got to check it, man.
You really do.
It's extra baggage. Yeah. No, you know what? I've been using a phrase more recently, and I'm sure I've said it to you a million times, in our discussions is, it's that 75% right now. I mean, if you look out there and you see who's winning, right, as far as success and, and their goals. And you're like, wow, that actually made money, or they were actually successful doing that. I'm like, are you kidding me? Right. And that part of that is because they're just focusing on what they're good at, and just the hell with it, and I've been personally adopting that as well. Like, because you know what, my 75% in what I'm good at is better than most people's 100%. You know what I mean? And I say that in what I'm good at, right? In my talents, right? So if you focus on your talents and not worry so much about your, where you fall short or where you believe you need to improve upon, and not saying don't improve upon those things, but, really just double down on what you're good at, you're going to get so much further along in your goals and where you want to be. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that has been a good reality check for me. And it's sort of been like, okay, well, let me look back on other things that I've done, and has that sort of been around, and, come to find out, yep, it's been right there the whole time. I've been sort of avoiding it for far too long. But now that I know, it's like, I got to step away. I got to get out of my own way in a lot of cases.
We all do. I mean, that's a common problem. I think everyone has, personally, professionally. I think we're in our own way in the things that we want to achieve, and that's something. It's a growing process. It's just takes time and dedication. You just got to work at it, right? We didn't become good at what we're good at, overnight.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I think the biggest things that have kind of led me to that conclusion, because everybody already knows, like, I knew that. I mean, you knew that. We all knew that, but nobody knows it to the point to where it's like, oh, that applies to me. Right. Like, I thought it was just something that some, people say, but
it's like a token saying,
right.
Yeah, but you don't really apply it. It's all about the execution though, right? That's something That's everybody says too.
Yeah, exactly. And so, it's not, I think the message is so insightful, and so many people say it, that it sort of has been watered down to where it's like, we think less of it, or we think that it doesn't apply to our lives until you can see the application. Mm-hmm. And then it becomes sort of this valuable thing that you actually have to abide by. And so I think that point for me was kind of hit last year.
Yeah. No. Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us, and thank you for being on the show. If you're interested in reaching out to Isaac and learning more about, mortgage financing or private capital investments, please reach out to him at guardian.loans. And I'm your host, Jason Tirico, and make sure you subscribe. And if you have a question, leave me a message on my wartimeceo.com, and we'll try to answer them on our next show. Thank you all.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Wartime CEO. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. There's strength in numbers. And with Wartime CEO and Jason, you'll never again fight a battle alone. Do you have a problem or issue you're battling? Please feel free to leave Jason a voice message at mywartimeceo.com. We'll see you next time.